This is my new space dedicated for doing projects. But let's rewind for a minute, because to get to this point was a pretty big process. So I recently moved, which was incredibly stressful, but it means I now have an extra bedroom that I can dedicate to project stuff. Only issue is, it's kind of a disaster at the moment. So first, let's build something quick and easy that we can use as a workbench. Since my goal was to build this quickly, the obvious choice for materials was just using construction lumber. So I went down to Home Depot, where all good ideas begin, and picked up some plywood and 2x4s. The design I settled on has an 8-foot by 24-inch top surface, and has two smaller shelves on the bottom. Breaking down the plywood is really simple and only required a couple cuts with a circular saw. I used a router to quickly round over all the edges. And then the rest of the bench is built just using 2x4s, so I cut them all to length using a miter saw. Thankfully, lumber prices have come down a bit from what they were a year ago, but let me tell you, it's still not as cheap as it should be. I think in total this is a little bit over $100 in wood. As with most projects, the last 10% seems to take 90% of the time. I started the finishing process by sanding all the workbench tops. To finish the tabletops, I used some very light gray paint. This was literally just house paint, and then I put a few coats of polyurethane over it to protect it. On the legs, I wanted to do a dark finish, so I started with this product that was supposed to make the wood look charred. However, it turned out to be much lighter than I thought it would be, so I ended up using just some black stain, which made it a lot darker. Before assembly, I used some 3D printed jigs to pre-drill the holes in all the pieces. This made assembly a lot easier and meant that none of the boards split when I put them together. Before we get any further in the build, I want to quickly thank this video's sponsor, which is PCBWay. I've used PCBWay for a couple projects in the past, and they've always done excellent work. They offer a wide range of services, including PCB manufacturing, CNC machining, 3D printing, injection molding, and more. If you need any of these services, check them out using the link in the description below. In my opinion, this thing came together really well, and I was super happy with how it looked. Damn! I think that'll do, boys. I think that'll do. Now, the other problem I've been having is that after doing all these projects, I've ended up with a lot of small hardware and tons of small electronic components. I mean, just look at my bearing collection after all the gearbox projects. And then I've also got these cases full of screws, bolts, and basically everything else. To fix this, I got some of these small part organizers, which have lots of small drawers. These should hopefully help me find and get whatever small part I need quickly. They didn't come with any dividers for the drawers, so I quickly 3D printed some. This process of organizing tons of small bolts, nuts, screws, LEDs, sensors, etc. into these small labeled tubs Took several hours, but it was definitely worth it since I now have all the hardware and I know exactly where it is. While building out this room, I also made a trip to Ikea and picked up some super cheap furniture to use as a work table and to store the resin printers on. Embracing my inner Swede, I assembled these pieces pretty quickly and then just had to organize the rest of the room. Now this room is definitely far from being done, and there's still some organization needed, but I gotta get back to working on projects rather than building furniture, so let me show you where it's at currently. Room tour. 9 p.m. coffee hits. Alright, so there's a lot of stuff in this room, so let's take a quick tour. Alright, so up on top here we have the main workbench. I've got some tools, an airplane I like flying, all my hardware that I showed earlier, and then over here I've got all my WD-40 sprays that everyone yells at me for using on plastic, and then some bits and screwdrivers and a bunch of stuff that I just use all the time. And then over here in the corner I have this sick LED strip thing that changes colors. Definitely not essential, but it is YouTube, so maybe it is essential. I don't know. I think it looks pretty cool though. And then below here we have a lot of printers. See, right here is my Creality CR10S. I've had this forever. It really has phenomenal print quality. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles that a lot of the new printers have, but it still pumps out amazing prints. So it's definitely probably still my go-to printer. Now over here is actually a brand new printer as of like 2 days ago. Creality sent this to me. It's the Ender 3 S1 Plus. And again, I've printed like 2 things with it so far. So we'll see how it does long term, but so far it looks pretty good. And then over here, of course, we have the Kaiwu Tycoon as well. And then over here, we've got the resin setup. This right here is my first resin printer. It's a Creality LD02, whatever. I got it when there was a really cheap sale at Micro Center. And it prints halfway decently, but I haven't been able to get very dimensionally accurate results, which is pretty important for the stuff that I print. Then over here I have their wash station, which makes it a lot easier to post-process parts. And here's a printer that Elgu actually sent me. It's their Mars 3 resin printer. It's got a 4K LCD, and I've actually been able to get very dimensionally accurate results out of it. So that's a huge plus for the projects that I do. So this will probably be my go-to resin printer from now on. So down here I have all of my resin and a bunch of resin accessories. If you guys have done resin printing, you know that it is a disaster. So I keep it all down here. The rest of this closet is full of tools that I've yet to organize, a lot of filament that I need to find a different way to store because right now it's taking up too much room. Then I have this table which is going to be used for soldering and electronics and things like that. And then underneath I have more storage. And then over here is a big chunk of room that's reserved for a pretty big laser cutter that I'm building. So subscribe for that. Should be coming pretty soon. And that's really all there is to it. This room isn't giant, but I think it's going to be perfect for the projects that I like to do. As always, I have a ton more projects in the works like the big laser cutter, so subscribe for that, and I'll see you in the next one.